It was beautiful. I wouldn't change a thing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unmatched Hustle. I'm Tyler Enzo, and I'm with my co-host Dylan Bradley, and we have two very special guests here, Ethan Schlesinger and Freya Salsbury. They are super experienced in photography, and Ethan is planning on studying film as well.
Ethan is 18 and Freya is 17. They're unsure of where they're going to college exactly, but Ethan's going to study film production and writing, and Freya's probably going to study economics. Ethan has interest in photography, music, acting, and writing, and Freya, also interested in photography and music, also has a passion for running. So today we're going to talk a little bit about each of them and focus a lot about photography and what makes for a good photographer.
Yeah, so for me, one thing that I'm working on right now is actually a music video with my sister. So yeah, so since like quarantine is on and everything was canceled. So that included the Soul Ensemble Festival for school. So now that it's online, what we're planning on doing is making like an official music video for her piece and then to submit that for the competition. So we're taking it a little bit up a notch.
Ooh. Are you trying to do anything special with your cinematography for that to kind of dress it up and make it more interesting, or are you more just shooting it flat?
Yeah, I mean, we're still like in the planning phase. So we planned out like most of the shots that we want to take. So we're doing it like pretty in depth. We're like thinking of what exactly we want to like evoke with each shot, or like what kind of feeling or like thing like that.
Really cool.
So yeah, I don't know, but it's in the works.
That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Pretty much right now, I had an independent study that I was working on for school. It was going to be a documentary about Homestead, but unfortunately, I was going to film a lot of it this trimester. So at the moment, we're trying to figure out what to do, and I'm working with the wonderful Miss Connolly to figure that out.
Awesome.
But at the moment, we're thinking I'm gonna interview a couple doctors over like FaceTime or Skype or things. I'm gonna interview them, and maybe I'll make a documentary about quarantine. I'm gonna do my best to be creative and stay creative in this time. So, and I'm making a couple short films. I'm writing some screenplays. So that's really the projects I've been working on. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw a couple of those short films. They're looking pretty cool, especially the leader one.
Yeah, thank you.
And are they just about things that you've kind of experienced in your own life, or things you're interested in?
I'd like to emulate some of my characters as personal experiences, but I also like to make experiences that maybe everybody has, so that everybody can connect to the characters. My biggest thing about when writing characters is that I want them to be relatable, and I want them to be like, oh, I see myself in that character, and I want people to find comfort in film. I want people to find comfort in the stuff they watch. So
that's awesome. Where do you guys see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? Who would like to start?
Ethan can go first.
Like when I think about like looking, into the future and like looking where I want to be or where I'm gonna end up, like with my, with my job, I really couldn't tell you. There's a lot of things that I want to do. There's a lot of things that I want to pursue. There's a lot of things that I'm interested in. And life is short, unfortunately, and you can't pursue everything. But I like to. I don't know where I'm going to end up. Hopefully, working for a company or maybe starting my own freelance company.
Yeah.
I just want to end up somewhere where I'm happy. That's most important to me. And if that's working for someone else, that's working for someone else. If that's working for myself, that's working for myself. I think it's most important to keep yourself happy and keep your passion going and to lose it. So yeah, that's where I see myself, I guess.
And then you see yourself in the film industry then, you said?
Yeah, that's the dream. That's the hope. So hopefully.
Yeah, I mean with film there's really no set career path per se. But like let's just say you woke up in a dream. What would you be doing for your job if you were in this dream?
I'd probably want to work for one of my favorite film studios is A24. They just make beautiful films. And
All right, better get them on the phone. 824, we got the next talent right here.
I don't want to make a film for them, and I don't want to like screenwrite for film and TV. So that's
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's cool that you know exactly what company you want to work for too. So you can really like try to pursue that goal.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I see film as another medium to express yourself and to get ideas across. And I think that especially today in the world, it's important to, like express important ideas because there's a lot of like other mediums like writing and stuff like that. But I feel like film, because a lot of people go see movies, a lot of people, take things from movies, and it's easy to, influence a message within a movie. I want to make a movie that other people walk out of the theater and be like, I've never thought about life that way, or I've never thought about this concept that way,
Yeah. Has there been a movie that has made you feel that feeling? Because I know for me, The Matrix definitely messed everything. I'm just like, oh wow, I never even thought this could possibly be a possibility. But has there been any movie that has done that?
I think I've seen a lot of movies. Like there's so many that I've enjoyed, but there's been a couple, including it. It was this really it's like from 2000, the early 2000s. It's called The Way Back, and it was like a summer like teen coming of age like movie that was mostly on the comedic time, but it was just very like, it was about a kid who didn't really like his home situation, so he like went like during like a vacation he went out to go hang at like a abandoned water park, and like he like got a job at this water park and like found people that accepted him for who he was. He was a little shy. He didn't really like, he wasn't so outgoing, and I just thought it was kind of beautiful that he like, it has Steve Carell, so that's always good. So I really enjoyed that movie. But I just like, I think you can find beauty in anything, to be honest. I don't think, sometimes the message is right there at the screen throwing it at you, but sometimes it's very underlying and you have to dig into it. So I think.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Freya, where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
I mean, yeah, like something doing like photography could be fun for sure. Like that would definitely be something that I would enjoy. And then same with, I guess it'd be fun to like have my own business too. Or yeah, and to introduce like a new product or something different and new.
So a entrepreneur, eh?
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. I think, yeah. But I don't know. And I feel like that's kind of similar to photography too, because in photography, when you take pictures, you're introducing like a new, different perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really, really cool.
How would you describe your photography style? Ethan, you want to go first?
You're grinning a little bit over there.
I guess when I think of like style, I think it could be very subjective. A lot of photographers are identified by their style. So style can either be made in the composition of the photo, or it can be made in the post-processing of the photo, so the editing. I think that there are tons and endless different styles that people can use. I would say, right now I'm shooting on 2 different mediums. So I am shooting on a digital camera. I think that's what Freya uses. And then I'm shooting on a film camera, which is 35 millimeter film, which is all manual. And the pictures have to be developed and scanned and everything like that. So the styles do look very different. The way the film looks is a little more old school and a little more grainy, and has a little more edge to it, and I like that. Freya, I don't know if you can back me up on that, but you can definitely say like the film looks a little more cleaner sometimes than digital.
I definitely agree. Yeah, it's a different look.
Yeah. And
Are
the
you
fi-
working in like a dark room to do that?
I personally don't have one. I send mine into a lab, but yes, it would be a dark room, and you have to develop and then scan them onto your device so you can upload them.
Nice.
The great thing about film is that the editing process, I would say, is a little more like you have a little more control over the colors and stuff because you set the ISO, you set the aperture, you set all these things. And I don't know, I would say my style is more of like fashion photography.
Yep.
I do senior portraits like just like Freya and stuff like that, so I can jump from style to style, but I would say my preferred style is fashion and lifestyle photography. So yeah.
If you're taking a photograph of like lifestyle and fashion versus like a senior portrait, how would you change how you address the picture? Meaning, like, how would you change your techniques? How would you change what liberties you'd take with each?
Senior portraits definitely I would do on digital. Like I don't think I'd ever take a senior portrait on film. Um, I I would also put like the subject in the middle of the put symmetrical, and I definitely have the bokeh or the aperture. Freya, if you know that term I'm talking about, yeah, the like the amount of like blur in the background. You definitely want that pretty high because you want the subject to be the center of the image, and I definitely make sure that the lighting is a lot better. For film, you don't really have to worry about the lighting so much because you have a lot of control over that. But it's important that when you're taking a senior portrait, you want the lighting in a specific position so it doesn't wash the person's face out or it doesn't ruin the picture. I've had a lot of problems with that during this semester, or not semester, but this year. So I guess the composition would always also be different. I'd want a vertical, straight portrait for a senior portrait, but for some fashion lifestyle, it can be anything. It can be from the bottom angle, it can be from the side, it can be you're catching the ambience of the photo.
Yeah.
Great. Freya, how would your style compare and contrast to what Ethan was describing?
Actually, a lot of what Ethan said is probably true for me too. So for like senior photos, usually I try to go for a different style than like more creative type photos. And like Ethan said, for senior photos, normally you'd want to do kind of more conventional, so like straight in front of the person, or like the person's right in the middle, and like usually the lighting might be a little bit different. Like you wouldn't really go for harsh lighting or anything in senior pictures. But for more like creative ones, I guess you have some more liberties of what to do because there aren't really as many guidelines. So you could play with the lighting more. Maybe do some harsh lighting or something like that, or do different angles too, things like that. You could play with more.
Yeah,
Great.
the last shoot you and I did, we definitely played with those angles, and I thought a bunch of them turned out super, super cool. I know you were working on the blur effect last time we shot together too. Have
Mhm.
you been practicing with that some more, or?
If you want to do like blurry photos, you need to decrease the shutter speed and in turn increase the aperture so you can get the right amount of light in.
Awesome. All right. Where do you guys draw inspiration from? Let's talk more specifically photographers right now, and then we can just talk in general. Like, where do you draw inspiration from?
I mean, for me, I would say I find a lot of inspiration from Instagram. And usually if I like see a photo that I like, then I save it to a folder. And I have different folders for like different types of photo inspirations. So I'd have like a studio one for like indoor photos or, like just like regular outdoor ones. Or sometimes like for a specific shoot, if there's something that I'm going for and I want to find inspiration for that, then I put it all into one board. And I do the same thing with Pinterest too, but not as much. But I also use Pinterest similarly.
I feel like Instagram's just so much easier to scroll through than Pinterest.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's easier on Instagram because I'm already like following people whose photos I like versus Pinterest. Sometimes it's hard to like scroll through all of the different photos.
Yeah, because there can be some junk scattered throughout there too.
Yeah, I think so. When I draw inspiration from other photos, it's more contemporary, but a
Okay.
lot of the time too, you can draw inspiration from other things that aren't necessarily like photos themselves. Like for example, if one day you're walking outside and you see some really cool light or something like that, then you could kind of make that into inspiration too. So I don't know. Yeah, I think there's different forms.
Okay.
Awesome. How about you, Ethan?
I think I do draw some inspiration from a couple of photographers. A lot of them are contemporary. For the film kind of style, I draw inspiration from a man called Gunnar Stahl and Ray's Corrupted Mind.
They're both.
They're both really cool film photographers, and I like the way they do their compositions, so I really appreciate that. But I also draw the most inspiration I really draw is just from people, like the people I'm shooting. Honestly, I really like shooting people on a camera. Had to clarify. I really enjoy seeing different subjects and seeing how they differ from each other and how they complement the background that I have them on. I think that there's, everyone's different, and you can make a really cool photo out of like either the colors they're wearing or how their skin complements the light, or the color of their hair. I think you can find really small things, and that's how I really like to take photos, by using people as my subject. I of course love landscape and the regular nature photos, but I wouldn't say that's my strong suit. I'd say that my strong suit is taking like photos of people, and I think that that's what I wanted to do anyway. So it's just I really enjoy that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What are your most used tools for creating an effect, such as light, shading, contrast, etc.?
I guess my most used would probably be, well, on a camera it has like kind of three important things. Like you don't, if you want to all right, if you, let's say you're eating like cereal or something, you have the bowl and you have the cereal and you have the milk. So I guess these three things are what make the cereal or the camera work. So there's aperture, ISO, and shutter speed, and they all work off each other. So if you change one, you might have to change the other, and they all control different things. So shutter speed is how quickly the shutter opens and closes. So correct me if I'm wrong, Freya. It's like they can go from 1/100th second to I don't know, 1 to a couple thousandths. I don't know. It's a lot. And then aperture is, you have the ISO, which is kind of controlling the exposure a little bit. So those three things you use for different amount of photos. Of course, at night, if you are shooting at night and you don't have a flash, you definitely want to put that ISO up. And you want to let more light into the image, so your shutter speed wants to be lower. So things like that. And I guess the thing I use most is I definitely work with shadows a lot. I think I have a studio downstairs, and so does Freya, and she can tell when she shoots a photo, the shadow of the person reflects on the white background. And I think it's kind of cool to use in the photo and work off of. So yeah.
Do you do anything special with color or background or anything like that?
Me or Ethan?
You, Freya.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I would say color is a big part of it, and color can make a big difference in how the photo looks too. Especially if you have two colors that really clash, it's usually not going to look very good. Versus if they go well together, it's obviously going to look a lot better. And it can help kind of evoke a certain feel too, with the colors. So
I know you guys kind of differ on what type of scenery you like to use for your photos, but I'd say, Ethan, you're more like the city aesthetic, and Freya, you're more of like the nature, like I'd almost say like beautiful aesthetic, because you like using a lot of flowers and that kind of stuff. Would you like to expand more on what type of scenery is the perfect scenery for you guys?
100%. I think that, like Freya was saying, like you could definitely like expand and mix a bunch of things. So I think that Freya's style would work in the city, and my style would work in the nature. I think it all just depends on like you. It depends on what you like. I don't think there's any restraints to photography. I think that's the beautiful thing about it. I think it's an endless art form that you can use to take any picture, and I've seen some wacky ideas that turn into pictures and they look really cool. And like, at first you hear it and you're like, oh, I don't know if that looks like a good picture, but the art form is just what makes it a good picture. I think that sometimes I love to photograph nature and things like that. Sometimes I'm like, wow, that's beautiful. And then sometimes I'm looking for a more grungy feel and a more city feel, and I want to go in the city. It's I think it's all about what mood you're trying to put out with the colors and everything. Like Freya said, like it evokes a feeling.
Yeah. Freya, would you like to expand on that, or?
Yeah, I think what Ethan said is pretty good. I mean, usually you pick the location, what kind of like style you want to go for. So if you want to go for something more grungy, like Ethan said, you'd probably go in the city. Versus if you want to do something more, I don't know, just like a different style, more gentle, I guess, you'd probably want to go like more in the countryside, or at least with some like nature type scenery.
Great. What first drew each of you to photography, and how did you hone that skill since then?
For me, I think it was just, I guess I've like always kind of been taking photos, even when I didn't have my own camera. I would like borrow my mom's flip phone, take photos. Yeah, but I don't know. And then I guess like how I honed it was just through practice. And I guess it was also it was nice like having my sisters take photos of. So like most of the time I didn't really have to worry about getting someone to take photos of, which is definitely useful. But yeah, I would say just like practice is the biggest thing.
Okay.
Yeah, Inga's got a pretty awesome Instagram thanks to the twin. The right? How about you?
It's actually a kind of a funny story. So I actually, like Freya said, I always like taking photos on my phone. I liked, taking some nice pictures of like flowers and things like that, and some like landscapes when I went on vacation. But the funny thing is, I met Freya from choir, and I actually found her photography account, and I was like, wow, I want to do this, and I was like, I want to like take cool photos. And I actually was talking to Freya about it, and I was like, whoa, this is so cool. Like, what do you have to do? And she was, I have to credit Freya a little bit with getting me really into it, because she was the one who kind of gave me that little push to do it. And then there's this running joke that I'm a better photographer than her.
Is that the joke?
Yeah, it's a joke. We ever since I got into it, and,
you started with that joke right away, right when you got on the call. Right.
No, Freya's. I say that we both have our strengths, and I think Freya's photos are beautiful. So of course I would. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that.
The apprentice has become the master.
Yeah. But me and Freya have actually done tons of shoots together, and we love to collaborate. So I'm glad that we have that medium together. So.
You guys keep talking about collaborating. What does a collaboration between two photographers look like? Because overall, you guys are basically shooting the same subject at the same time. So how do you guys talk during these collaborations? Yeah, just like what do they look like?
I think our most recent one was with Tess and Zach in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually it's like one of us telling the other one, get out of the way. So like that.
Unfortunately, when it's crowded, we're all trying to get that beautiful shot, and sometimes we get in each other's way a little bit. Yeah. I remember we were our friend Tess, who goes to Whitefish Bay. We were at Freya's house, and we were down at Freya's studio. And we were both trying to shoot Tess, and the paper is only so long, so like we have to get like a specific angle. And Freya and I were kind of butting heads a little bit, trying to get the picture. But I guess a collaboration, like, it's a bunch of things. Me and Freya both did a little video. Like, we kind of switched each time. We both went to Milwaukee with Tess and Zach, and we filmed, them. We kind of made a little video. Freya's video's on YouTube. Mine's on YouTube. They're both really cool, so you guys should check them out.
Link in the description.
Yes, link.
I think that our videos were really cool, and I guess me and Freya, we just like to shoot together, and we bounce ideas off each other. We're like, oh, what if we did this? And Freya's like, oh, that's a good idea. Or she tells me, I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. And I think it's really cool to be around other creative people, because that's what gets your juices flowing, Freya, I don't, what would you add? I don't know.
Ethan again was pretty spot on, and yeah, like, jokes aside from butting heads, I think it's nice to have someone to like bounce ideas off of, and a lot of the time we have like different ideas that we can kind of meld together and to create like a new look, I guess, which I think is really cool. So I guess it just opens up the possibilities of what we can do, and I think usually we end up getting better photos when we do it together anyway, because we have so many different ideas that we wouldn't have thought of anyway.
Yeah, we shot each other's senior portraits, so. And I was very happy with the outcome, so thank you.
Me too.
That says a lot if you two trust each other for that.
Oh yeah, of course.
We just gotta determine at this point which one's.
I think honestly, Freya was the first one. I'll hop off. I'll back up. But
no, I have film Freya. You can use at your disposal at any time.
No, Ethan's definitely better. I think. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think you can't really say that either of us is better, because we both have our own styles. So it's like you can't really compare.
I definitely like how you edit, though. I definitely feel like editing is probably my most challenging, because I'm very indecisive. So I definitely like that.
You have pretty good edits.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, but I definitely like how you use your colors and contrast and everything in the shadows. They definitely enhance. But I definitely see us working together in the future, to be honest. I see us working on some more projects, and I hopefully we start a little collective. We were talking about starting like a business together, a little. Yeah.
Speaking of businesses, how have you connected your interest in photography and business so far?
For me, I guess most of that's probably just through senior photos and other like family photos, or just other photos like that. I guess like more commercial type stuff rather than creative.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say it's the biggest way that I've done it.
And for that, do you do like a pricing scheme, like charge by the hour or by the photo, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I just do by the hour. So yeah.
Nice. Ethan, how about you?
Don't you do a flat rate, right? Or is it by the hour?
I usually depends on like the shoot. For more creative shoots, I usually have a flat rate, but for senior photos, I have by the hour, like Freya. To be honest, it's for pricing. It's really hard to determine what you should price for your own art. It's like it's hard to determine that good price that you're like, would people pay this amount for me to take photos? And I know I've struggled with it, and I don't know if you have, Freya, but
yeah, I definitely have too. Yeah.
I think therein lies the question for a lot of business decisions.
Yeah, but I think that for me, it's more charging for my time, not the art. I enjoy doing the art. I enjoy taking photos, but like time, labor, all that stuff. So it's like, I think that I want to get recognized. And I want to get paid for my work. I guess the best payment is recognition. That's what I can say. The best payment is recognition, and it feels really cool when someone sees a photo and be like, I know who took that photo off the bat. That's what I want to get to. That's the level I want to get to. So.
Yeah.
Love it.
What fictional character do you guys most associate with?
I have my answer actually. I think I found it. If you've seen BoJack Horseman, it's on Netflix, and I really love that show. BoJack has a roommate named Todd, and Todd is this funky dude who he wears the same outfit every day. It's an orange sweatshirt and a little yellow beanie, and Todd always gets to seem he always has these like sporadic ideas of starting random businesses. Like he started an Uber business, like a business that is woman driving woman to make them feel comfortable. But then it expanded into what if we made it for men driving men, and it was just some crazy ideas. And I fell in love with the character because he reminds me a little bit of myself. I always have these little crazy ideas, and they're always like on the spot. It's not like I'm thinking of them. And also Todd is a little bit insecure and doesn't really know where he wants to be in life. And sometimes I feel like everyone can feel that way. So I also feel that I like to dress similarly every day. So that could be a little Todd trait. But I definitely recommend the show, by the way, if anyone likes animated shows. It's not only a comedic show, but it definitely deals with mental health in a very, very real way. And sometimes you forget that you're watching an animated show, which is kind of beautiful.
Yeah, and it's terrific writing on that show.
Terrific. Yeah. I got Tyler into it a little bit, so.
Yeah. I'm not the one to binge shows, but I definitely indulged in a couple episodes at the start of this quarantine.
In your opinion, what is the most undervalued profession today?
I'd say teachers, 100%. I'd say teachers. I'd really say teachers. I'd say they're underpaid, also being undervalued. I think that teachers are super important to the upbringing of children. I think a lot of this, I learn a lot from just like observation in the world, but also like I joke about not liking school, and I joke about I don't want to go to school, but I actually do learn a lot at school, and actually I do find interesting things that, like, when adults talk about things, I'm like, oh, I know what that is, and I can connect that to my learning and things like that. And I think it's really cool. And I think you develop that skill over time. And I think school is actually very important. And that's why I actually, before high school, I didn't really take school seriously. I was getting like terrible grades, and I was just like slacking off, and I was just like, oh, I don't care. Like, this isn't going to matter. Like, I don't give a crap. But once I got to high school, I buckled down, and I was like, I need to get working. Like, this is important, So I think teachers are 100% underappreciated, especially right now. What they're doing, they've never transferred to freaking online learning now, and now they have to fix their whole curriculum to fit a couple hundred children.
And that's a 2-week turnaround too, where they had to do that. It's not like they had a whole summer to fix them like they would in normal settings. No, it was a 2-week turnaround. So especially now, I agree with you. They are probably the most undervalued profession currently.
Yeah.
Like, right. How about you, Freya, though?
Honestly, maybe like some of the more like niche type of professions or industries, just because they can still have like a large impact on certain people, but not necessarily like a lot of people. So yeah, I don't know about specifically, but I mean, there are a lot of different small industries that, certain people are very into, but there's not a whole lot of people who are. So
yeah, and there's a couple of those like niche industries that people actually need to like live with their day-to-day life, because there's a couple of niche industries for, like, let's say, it's not really niche anymore, but for diabetics, there's so many supplies that they need to have that most people wouldn't value unless they're diabetic. So I agree with that too. Would you guys consider yourself a visionary or a realist?
I would say for myself, honestly, probably more of a realist, but kind of probably, like a mix of both. because I would say like you wanna be a visionary and look ahead of the future, but also be realistic about it. Because you don't want to be like have visions just that aren't gonna happen, if that makes sense. So you want to keep your visions realistic.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to move locations for a second. I would definitely say that I am leaning towards the visionary side. But I totally understand where Freya is coming from, and I definitely feel that way sometimes. I also just like I really think out of the box a lot of the times, and when something doesn't really seem like real, I try to make it real, and I try to make it a part of my life, and I think that pursuing creative out of the box ideas gets you recognized. I think if you're just like everybody else, you're not gonna really stand out, and your work isn't gonna stand out. But at the same time, being realist can actually help you in photography. So I think I'm in the middle in both cases. So
Great. Do you have any advice for people who are interested in pursuing photography?
I'd say just go for it. I'd say there isn't a lot holding you back. It doesn't matter what camera you have, even though there's this assumption that the gear is a very important part of like the photos you take. And honestly, like iPhones are super super complex today. Like I've seen some beautiful photos on iPhones, and like it's crazy. Like I'm like it's almost up to digital, and that's insane. That's like something that, like Apple should be proud of that. Like I've seen some beautiful photos. Like some photographers only take photos on iPhones, which is insane.
Wow. I didn't know it was like that.
Yeah, I also think that you shouldn't like I sometimes was like guilty of this when I first started. You shouldn't try to copy someone else. You should try to be yourself. I think that you can find inspiration from people. That's totally okay, but people want to see like the photos you take, not whoever like you're like trying to emulate.
Yeah.
I think it's cool to have inspiration. It's cool to like have like you want to, like I said, it's about recognition, and you don't want to be like, oh, that guy is trying to copy so and so, but you're like, oh, that guy takes photos, like that guy, I know that guy's photos, like I've seen them everywhere,
Mhm.
and it's super important to just not get discouraged. It's a lot of trial and error. I think you can agree with me, Freya. It's a lot of just trying to take a photo, seeing if you like it, seeing what you want to change about it. I think it's insanely it's a process, and it's only gonna continue if you work hard and get to that, like anything in life. So.
Yeah,
Right.
and about the copying, I kind of feel like everyone when they start a creative venture kind of copies to an extent, because getting their basic skills and working on developing their own style to that extent. Do you agree with that, or?
Yeah, I think yes.
Yeah.
I think to a point there's a really line between what's strictly copying an image and what's an imitation per se. I think that maybe it's flattering to have your people like your style and use your style, and sometimes it's a little like, oh, like you're getting attention from my style, something that I started, so I feel like I'm not judging anyone based on the decisions they make. I think it's totally okay to do whatever creative decision you make, because that's what you want people to see you as. So that's your image, and that's nothing for me to judge, because I make my own creative decisions.
Mhm.
So I think that it's a very hard thing to put a label on it, just to be like, that's terrible, or that's like copying. So I think it's very, very subjective.
Yeah,
Freya?
and a point on that too. I think sometimes copying can kind of hinder somebody's development as a photographer, just because you're not really like thinking by yourself of how to improve. So I think it's not a bad thing to like get inspiration from others, and I think that's what most people do at the beginning and even as they progress. But I think that's different from like copying somebody else's photos.
Okay.
And if you guys were copied, would you be more flattered or would you be annoyed? Because I know personally, I'd definitely be flattered that someone copied me, but at the same time, I'd be annoyed because I'm like, oh, guess I have to move on to the next thing sooner than I thought.
I guess I'd be somewhere in the middle. I'd be flattered that, you know, like people are finding inspiration from my style and, you know, using it to take their own photos, which is cool. But at the same time, like I don't want my like the people that like the things I'm recognized for to like be like overshadowed by, you know, someone who like, you know, completely copied my style, you know. So I think it's kind of ridiculous. But at the same time, you know, a lot of people have similar styles, and sometimes it's just a coincidence, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think it's also different if they give you like recognition or not too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it would probably, if somebody like says inspired by Ethan or whatever, I think you'd probably feel a little bit different than if somebody like straight out copied it.
Oh, that'd be
I guess you'd still feel like a little bit flattered each way, but probably be a little more positive if they did give the recognition.
Okay. Before we wrap up here, just want to get a quote that each of you like to live by, or that is inspiring to you.
Funny enough, the quote I'm going to use is actually from Surprise, Surprise, BoJack Horseman. And the context of this quote is in one of the episodes, the main character, he falls down on the ground outside his house, and this like all the characters are animals pretty much. So this baboon, who goes on a run every day, he looks at BoJack and he says, "It gets easier every day. It gets a little easier, but you got to do it every day. That's the hard part, but it does get easier." And I think it can be applied to anything, not just running. But I think, you know, I think I'm also a big advocate for mental health, and I think that art and mental health can kind of coincide with each other a little bit. But I think that, you know, it's just I really this when I first saw this episode and heard this quote, I really it stuck with me. So it's now saved in my phone.
Great.
awesome.
By Theodore Roosevelt, do what you can with what you have where you are. So just, I guess, what that means to me would be make the most of what you have in your circumstances. And I don't know, just, like strive to do your best, I guess.
That's great. All right.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for coming on. We had a great
Much for having us.
skills and inspiration, and you guys gave us some terrific advice, some terrific quotes to live by. We'll be sure to drop your Snapchats, Instagrams, and LinkedIn's if you have them down below. So if anyone would want to contact you, they can.
Yeah.
We'll be sure to give you credit for everything. Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Yeah,
Thank you.